Tutorial Tuesday has arrived, and we are going to make something that is simple yet beautiful. This fits the bill. You can turn this chain link, as we have here, as a necklace, bracelet, earrings, but something I'm going to show you. This is something else that's so wonderful about this link. What happens if you go and you make a necklace and you're like, man, I wish this was just one link longer or one link shorter. Oh my word, so easy. You can open them, you can adjust the size and make it longer. I'm going to show you towards the end how we're going to adorn them with a couple of these little coin beads. Love these. And we also, and I have the hardest time finding it because it is so simple and sweet. My goodness, where is it? Oh, it's the sweetest, simple, can't even find it clasp that is just going to blend into this wonderful, simple, elegant, customizable chain link. Let's get to it. I'm going to show you what you're going to need. To get started on this project, I always use my handy dandy 6-step bail pliers, flush cutters. We need some chain nose pliers. I use this to file ends. I'm going to be using a nylon hammer. You got hammers, you need a bench block. And for this lovely structure, I'm going to use 18 gauge. And then I'll use 16 gauge for the invisible clasp. There it is. And won't take you any time at all to bust out some length. Each one of these lengths measure about 1.5 inches long from the base of this belly to the top of the loop there. I did do one using the 9mm step on this bail, but for me, it just felt a little too fat, but that is an option if you want to do that. So I stepped it down to the 5th step, which is the 7mm, and I kind of liked that. But you could really take this into different directions, maybe go thinner, maybe even longer, or have a little more short, thin, dainty lengths. I mean, really, you can take this in multiple directions to achieve the look that you're going for. I really encourage that when you are watching a tutorial to make it your own. All right, let's clear the area and get started. For each of these lengths that I showed you measured about 1.5 inches long, I used 4.5 inches of 18 gauge. I was using 5 and then I cut it down to 4.5. It probably could go a little further, but I like to make sure that I have enough to work with. Especially when you're making the wraps and stuff. It's really hard to wrap when you don't have enough material to wrap with. I'm just taking off a little tarnish, a little polish, and work hardening as well. I mentioned in many of my videos that I start with dead soft, and I just prefer that. Whenever I get my half hard out, I just don't like it as much. Plus, if you're using dead soft, it's just easier on your hands. 4.5 inches. I'm going to try to eyeball this and get it broken into thirds. 2/3 on one side, leaving 1/3 on the other side. And we're going to bend this around, pressing near the bail, and also making sure that it's level so we get a nice link that's not all warped or misshapen. Oh, I did forget to tell you that you're going to need a Sharpie, and this is why I am using a Sharpie. I just want to lay this on a ruler and then mark 1 inch from the belly. You'll see why just in a second. Using that 5th step, which is 7mm, and I'm going to grasp the wire form that we've made, just like this. I like to start with bending the shorter wire underneath. And then when I go to press this longer wire, I'm pressing right in here as well. and pushing this over. Because sometimes if you don't press this, it'll want to bow out. And so I'm holding here to keep that shape as I'm bending it over. And we'll have something like this. Then I turn over, take some chain nose pliers on this short piece of the wire and get right into somewhere in the center. You're just going to have to eyeball it and find the center of this end. I'm going to grab this area very firmly and just twist, bend, turn, whatever you want to say, till it's coming out in the center of this shape. Taking those chain nose pliers again, I'm going to grasp firmly right on these two pieces of wire. And we're going to start our wraps. At this point, I will take just a moment to make sure I've got these wraps going in the direction. This is going to become the little loop at the end, the connecting loop. But before I get started, I want to make sure these wraps are going in the direction I want and that they're level with the top. Take that moment to make sure that is correct. Not too much angle, because that's just going to make your length of this link longer and you might run out of material. I like a nice level wrap. And I'll just take my hands. You can do pliers if that's more comfortable for you. This is what we're looking at now, to me, is the back side. I really like how that this, to me, is the front side. When this wrap start in this little shoulder, this elbow, I don't know what you want to say, is on the front coming up like this. To me, this looks like the back, but that's just me. And at this point, this is where we'll trim this back side with some flush cutters. And then I use this handy dandy, it's for fingernails, doing manicures, and that's how I just sand off this sharp end. Keep your bench block handy because you will definitely need it to strengthen this. I also like to gently, with the nylon, right into our wraps. If you finish it in the shoulders of this portion of the link are messed up or they're not aligned properly, you can take this bail, put it right back on there, and just be gentle with this. Light presses, because sometimes when you're doing this, it can pull out this neck out of the wrapping. You just, if it's not lined up correctly or it needs a little reshaping, just put the bail back on there and you can clean up the shoulders, if you will. Almost done. All we got to do is put this little hoop on the end, the little loop. I mean, how fast was that? I didn't even tell you what I just did. I'm taking some chain nose pliers, not the needle nose ones, something that has a little more girth on the side, and I'm just grabbing that whole chunk of wraps that we just did. And I bent it back. I find that that's easier than trying to get pliers in there and bending it back. Just use this as a thing to bend against. I'm going to trim to 1 centimeter. You might not have to, I don't have to trim that much, but I'm going to trim it. I have found that a centimeter is perfect for the smallest bail, or the 2 millimeter, I don't know where my piece went, the 2 millimeter bail. It's perfect. Now, something I'm doing when I go to make this loop, I'm not just rolling. I have fuzz right on the end. I am also kind of pressing down. I know this sounds really strange, but I'm trying to keep it over over to the side for as long as possible, keeping this line straight, if that makes sense, and rolling it over. I find that it makes this bend right in here, this neck part, stay with a good shape. And just line that up, line that loop up with the center of your link, and you've done it. I've shown you before that I love this little part on the pliers to clamp things down, to straighten things out, to even bring the ends together. It's perfect for that. Works way better than chain nose pliers. And we have created this wonderful link that I find it modern. I like the simplicity of it. I like this minimalistic modern look that you can take a little further by putting some beads in there, maybe hanging something down in between it, but something I'm going to show you before we do that. This is something else that's so wonderful about this link is you're like, oh, what happens if you go and you make a necklace and you're like, man, I wish this was just one link longer or one link shorter, or you just want to adjust the size in any way. Oh my word, so easy. That's what I fell in love with this. We're just going to open one of these loops. Take that off. Open the loop of the one we just made. A little bit more than that, Carrie. Slide it on. Close that loop. And then, boom, it's one link longer. I just love that about this feature because these loops are left open, if you will. They're not closed. They're not wrapped loops. They're just loops on the end. You can open them. You can adjust the size and make it longer. I also wanted it an odd number of links. I wanted it an odd number of links so that this very last one, so I can wrap in some of these wonderful aquamarine coin beads, which are 7 millimeters. So it's perfect. It's going to fit right down in this shape. Probably 3 is going to work. I'll show you how to do a simple wrap of putting one of these stones in one of these chain links. I'm going to use 22 gauge. I would really like to use 20 gauge, but my 20 gauge as of now is half hard. And I told you before, it's more difficult to work with, I find. And you want this part to be as easy as possible. You don't want to be struggling with these wraps. I've got my center link here. Always take time to make sure that your wraps are clean and smooth, and maybe you need to use a nylon plier to get them smoothed out. That really helps make your piece at the end like, wow, that looks really good. You wouldn't think it, but it really does. Keeping your wraps nice and clean, keeping your wire from being kinked. I think that's going to be enough because I don't want it to be just packed full of wraps, but I want it to be on there. We don't want to lose our wonderful little beads. And these are faceted too, these little coin beads. I love coin beads. I've mentioned in many a video that you get all this impact of the stone without it being all thick and heavy. They're great for earrings. Cleaning that wrap up. And on the back side as well. Just going to trim that. I didn't even need that much wire. I don't even know how much I clipped. Taking some chain nose pliers. These are great for this part where you really need to get into a narrow spot, is these tweezer chain nose pliers. Isn't that just adorable? It's a great little spin on a bar chain, I think. A bar necklace? Love that. So this is going to be the centerpiece. It's kind of hard to show you the whole thing here, but this would be the center of this necklace. Great little aquamarine coin bead, 7 millimeters to fill that space. Because remember, you can figure out what bead you're going to use to fill the space because we used the 7 millimeter bail on these pliers. So that's a great tip to figure out what bead would fit. Just remember what you used to make this wonderful link. Now let's make this simple, can't even hardly see it, little clasp. It's going to fit right into one of these loops on the end that we made. You'll need 3 centimeters of 16 gauge. Flush cut near ends. I'm going to use the first bail, which is 2 millimeters on my pliers, to make a loop right on the end. Just roll in. Turn your wire if you need to give yourself more room to make that loop. You run out of space. And then from here, I'm going to put the pliers on like that. I just put them back on the other way so that I can swing around the second bail on this pliers, and I'm going to use it as kind of a pushing off point to bend it around like that. Maybe just a little further, I think. I'm going to use the second step, 3 millimeters. Like that, holding very firmly, and I'm getting an eyeball on here. I want to keep it in line and just start pressing near the bail and on around till we get a little shape like that. Let me tap it flat just a little bit. You can use the same bail pliers, you can take some chain nose pliers, and we just want to make that bend on the end. And file the end so it's nice and smooth. And to attach it, you're just going to open that loop, slide on a link, and close it back up. And it just slides right in and out of that loop on the end. Just to make sure it's nice and firm, you can take a hammer, maybe the brass end, if you have that. Strengthen it a bit. So for this necklace, I made 15 links, and it measures just about 21 inches, around about that. And like I said, how wonderful is this necklace that you are able to shorten it or lengthen it even after you've made it. You can just open it up and pop one in there. So here we are with another completed project together. I had so much fun. And don't you love how easy it is to make? Each link is made in just over 3 minutes. And again, what's so wonderful about this link is that you can say you make a necklace and you're like, man, it needs to be a little longer, or I've made it way too long. Totally easy adjustable by adding a link or taking one out, because these open loops that we have made. I love simple projects. I love simple jewelry that has an artistic quality. You know, it's handmade quality, but it's simple and beautiful. And I love how it's capitalizing on the paperclip chain that is so popular recently. So it's definitely an echo of that wonderful look in such an easy, classy, simple way. All right, now I had a wonderful time, and I know you'll be back next week, and I know we'll have a great time. I wonder what we'll get into next week. If you have a suggestion, maybe you want to learn about some earrings or some more bracelets, more chain link, please let me know in the comments. I will always do my best to accommodate you. I've received some wonderful emails from people as far away as from Australia that have had some suggestions of what they would like to see. So let me know where you're watching from. I always love to know that. And I am so looking forward to see you next week. Have a great day.